The nightmare from the ferns. Look, I don't mean to cause any alarm. Most of us have that instinctive shiver when we see a bug. Maybe it's a tiny spider in the corner or a common centipede scurrying across the floor, but now I want you to imagine something different. Imagine you are transported 300 million years back in time. You're walking through a dense, ancient forest. Suddenly, from under a giant fern, a creature emerges that is the size of a car and as wide as a dining table. Meet Arthropleura. This is the undisputed final boss of the invertebrate world. It is officially the largest land arthropod to ever walk our planet. It lived during the Carboniferous period, roughly between 344 and 292 million years ago. Back then, Earth was a completely different world. The continents were huddled near the equator. The air was thick with humidity. Oxygen levels were so high they would make a modern insect's head spin. For a long time, we only knew this titan from fragments of its armor. We found giant trackways in the sand that looked like the tire marks of a heavy truck. For over 170 years, scientists were obsessed with a single mystery. Was this creature a cold-blooded killer or a peaceful giant? And why did it grow so impossibly large? Today, we're finally breaking it down. We're going to look directly into the face of this prehistoric titan because thanks to a massive scientific breakthrough, we finally know what its head looked like. A tank on 60 legs. Let's talk numbers. The scale of Arthropleura is truly hard to wrap your brain around. Some specimens reached a staggering 2.6 meters in length. To give you some perspective, if this creature stood up on its back legs, which it probably didn't, it would be taller than an NBA basketball player. It was over half a meter wide and could weigh up to 50 kilograms. This wasn't just a bug. It was an armored tank on legs. Its body was made of a series of tough, rigid plates called tergites. Adults usually had about 30 of these plates. Each plate had 3 distinct lobes, making it look a bit like a giant land-dwelling trilobite. And beneath each of those plates, 2 pairs of legs. Arthropleura was a relative of modern millipedes. A full-grown adult could have up to 60 pairs of legs working in perfect rhythmic harmony. The engineering of its legs was incredibly complex. Each leg was made of 8 to 10 segments. The back of the legs was covered in tiny pores with sensory hairs. This means Arthropleura could literally feel the chemical makeup of the soil and the vibrations of the earth with every single step. Its shell was hard and heavy. We know this because its footprints are pressed 3 centimeters deep into ancient sandstone. Just imagine the sound. The heavy rustle of chitinous armor and the steady thud of hundreds of tiny claws moving across the forest floor. The cow of the Carboniferous. Looking at this beast, it's easy to imagine a monster. In old documentaries, Arthropleura was often shown as a savage predator, ripping early amphibians to pieces. It's a terrifying image, but modern science has a very different story to tell. It turns out Arthropleura was actually the cow of the Carboniferous forests. Scientists analyzed everything they could find: jaw structures, gut contents, and even fossilized droppings called coprolites. Inside, they found fragments of fern spores and ancient wood. Arthropleura was a Drravore. This means it spent its life eating decaying plants, fallen leaves, and rotting bark. It was the forest's giant cleanup crew, processing tons of organic waste. It wasn't built for the hunt. Its movement was incredibly slow. Based on trackways known as Diplechnites cuithensis, we know it moved at a pace of about 1 kilometer per hour. That is a very casual stroll. It didn't have venomous fangs or powerful grabbing claws like modern centipedes. Instead, it just crawled slowly through the jungle, completely untouchable. Because of its massive size and thick armor, a grown Arthropleura had no real enemies. It was the king of its damp, swampy world, and it knew it. The face revealed. The biggest mystery was the head. For nearly 2 centuries, we found bodies, but never a face. What we thought was the head turned out to be just the first segment of the body. But in 2024, everything changed. Using advanced micro-CT scanning, scientists peeked inside rocks from France and found 2 perfectly preserved juvenile specimens. The results were a total shock. Arthropleura's face was a bizarre mosaic of features. The most striking thing? Large eyes on stalks. This is something you see in crabs or lobsters, but never in modern millipedes. These eyes gave Arthropleura a 360-degree field of vision. It might have used them to peer above the water's surface, suggesting it was amphibious. Its antenna had 7 segments, linking it directly to modern millipedes, but the inside was even stranger. Its jaws, or mandibles, were fully enclosed in a capsule, a trait we usually see in aggressive centipedes. This means Arthropleura was a missing link, combining features from 2 different groups of myriapods. It even had special protective plates on its face that scientists call a car bumper. This bumper protected its sensitive organs as it pushed through the thick, tangled vegetation of the prehistoric world. The secret to gigantism. How did it get so big? There is a physical limit to how large an arthropod can grow. They don't have lungs like we do. They breathe through a system of tubes called tracheae that rely on simple diffusion. Usually, if you get too big, oxygen just can't reach your internal organs. The traditional answer was oxygen. During the Carboniferous, oxygen levels were around 35% compared to 21% today. High oxygen levels allowed the gas to penetrate deeper into the body, breaking the growth barrier. But there's a catch. Some of the largest Arthropleura fossils come from a time when oxygen levels were only 23%, barely higher than today. Oxygen wasn't the only factor. Arthropleura had a unique respiratory system. Under its body, it had K-plates with tiny openings. Scientists believe these were connected to internal bags that worked like primitive lungs. As the creature walked, the movement of its legs acted like bellows, actively pumping air in and out. Combined with a lack of competition and no large predators to stop it, Arthropleura was free to occupy the mega herbivore niche millions of years before the first dinosaurs were even born. The fall of the giant. All empires must fall. Around 290 million years ago, during the early Permian, Arthropleura began to vanish. So what went wrong for our armored titan? The answer is a mix of climate change and new neighbors. The world was drying out. The massive rainforests of the Carboniferous began to collapse. They broke apart into small, isolated islands of vegetation. For a giant like Arthropleura, which needed a massive amount of food and moisture, this was a death sentence. The swamps were disappearing and the world was becoming a desert. Then came the competition. Early reptiles and the ancestors of mammals were evolving. They were faster, smarter, and more active. While an adult Arthropleura was hard to kill, it still had to molt. When an arthropod sheds its shell to grow, its new body is soft and vulnerable. With agile new predators on the scene, this molting period became a death trap. Arthropleura couldn't adapt to the drying world or the new competition. It faded into history, leaving only its magnificent tracks in the stone. It remains a powerful reminder of a time when the earth belonged to the giants of the undergrowth.